Welcome to today's episode on goal setting and optimizing your performance. In previous episodes, we've dealt with a range of issues. Fundamentally, I've explained to you how the impact of performance pressure is such that we can respond with fight flight. This is a learned response designed to protect us and relates to our earlier experiences, often not at all functional in the current situation. There's a much better way to deal with your own performance pressure. How do we do this? In earlier episodes, I disclosed it was really important that you understand the meaning of the exercise or engagement for you. So know why you're choosing the goal that you choose. Make sure that you own it. It's yours. That will help you to carry the value of this through the exercise itself and persist despite difficulties. Choose an appropriate goal that's equivalent to your current level of expertise. So one that's perhaps slightly more challenging than previous, and it's something that can be measured so that it's attainable. Secondly, and this is critical, I'd like you to understand that you can choose goals according to avoiding failure, which is often in relation to a prescribed standard. It might be, say, a KPI that your boss has expressed, or it might be against a certain grade in an exam. Alternatively, you could choose what's called an approach goal. Now, an approach goal is fundamentally about imagining and approaching what you want to achieve. So it's, in a sense, directly the opposite of the avoidance goal. There are three different types of approach goals. Clearly, we're not going to focus on avoidance goals, which rapidly escalate your own anxiety by about 30%. Remember that I talked about the Yerkes-Dodson curve, which was our optimal zone of arousal. Now, what we still aim to achieve is a range of alertness or arousal in the 4 to 6 out of 10 range. So know that if you choose an avoidance goal, you're going to ramp this up potentially from 5 to 8, which is well beyond your current ability to function in a conscious and clear way. Let's go back to our performance goals, where we're going to choose an approach goal. The options are that we approach our success by imagining it and consider how we're going to measure this. So if we measure it against a previous performance, which is fantastic, we call that a mastery goal because you're looking at gradually achieving increments in your own improvement. You could compare that against also a task performance. So you're basically ticking off the tasks to be achieved and doing them in an adequate way. Now, both of those goals leverage comparisons which help you to engage and to actually experience some joy and satisfaction in what you're doing up front. The final way of using approach goals is to approach your achievement according to an external standard. So know that this is going to raise your level of anxiety significantly early on. But because it's an approach goal and the focus is on what you can do, it's not on failure, you're likely to roll through that initial anxiety and then come into a much lower state of arousal. So having chosen an appropriate goal, your next step is, as you're executing your performance, to just become aware. So recognize what's going on for you as you progress. This is critical because you need to notice when your signs and symptoms of pressure start to increase, and in being aware of them, you're able to self-coach yourself. So in other words, step outside of your own performance and monitor it as you talk yourself through it in a way. So this is like having your own external coach, and it helps separate yourself from the internal physical state that you can find yourself in of increasing pressure or arousal. What it will facilitate you in doing is also reframing the experience away from, oh, this is unpleasant, it's distressing, to, I notice this experience, I'm going to make space for it. And I'm now going to refocus on the tasks involved, the incremental small steps I need to make to achieve the outcome I want, rather than emotion focused or physical focused coping, which we know causes you to feel helpless. You can't really necessarily control your physiology just like that. Your physiology is the end state of the psychological interpretation of the event that you find yourself in. So going back to having an awareness of your experience, coaching yourself by talking yourself with words such as, oh, okay, there's that pressure. I realize it. Reframe is your next step. That energy, that's enabling me to focus and to perform, rather than, oh my God, I'm getting overwhelmed. Starting to seek approval or reassurance from others outside of yourself. Clearly, you can't control what others are doing or your environment. So it's much better to refocus. So recognize, reframe, and then refocus on what it is that is the most important next step that you need to take to execute the task. It's that simple. Keep rolling through that same process. Now, the real benefit of refocusing on the task itself is it doesn't cause you to have to split your attention into the stress I'm experiencing while I'm trying to perform, and it brings your mind in line with what it is that you want to achieve. This is a substantial and enormous benefit to you. Remember, as you bring your mind to imagine and focus on what you want to achieve, you're focusing on positive outcomes. The enormous benefit of this is threefold. So the first thing is that it's easy to get into the flow, to engage the activity. Secondly, consciously, your brain is primed for success. So it's not at all acknowledging non-success or failure. Your focus will be much better, and therefore you'll be able to learn more quickly. Who doesn't want those outcomes as part of your experience? So once you have identified this experience and refocused on the task itself, the process is to just recycle through that. You'll usually get into the flow of the activity and not even really notice your own experience, but maintain an optimal level of focus on your performance. This should carry you through relatively well. If you do find yourself getting distracted, just recycle back to the refocusing. So in summary, the takeaway messages are approach goals fundamentally much more constructive than avoidance goals. Recognize, reframe, and refocus on the tasks as you go. And finally, enjoy the outcomes and the learning that goes with assuming mastery goals. Thanks for listening, and if any of the information requires clarification, please go back to some of my earlier episodes, particularly the first 2 or 3 on developing meaning and taking value-driven choices through your performances. Bye for now.